So we learned about function parameters, rest parameters. So we have spread parameter, right? What is difference between rest and spread? Rest is about formal and spread is about actual. What is it? One parameter can allow multiple arguments. Multiple arguments can be spread. Multiple parameters, we can spread value of one into multiple. That is what as spread. We discussed about function with return. How do we work function returns? What is a function return? So function return is nothing but technically function returns are how a function memory can be made available even when the function is finished. Right? That is the concept. If we don't use a function with return, what will happen? The memory allocated for function will be disposed after the function complete. But by adding a return to function, what will happen? The memory is kept alive so that you can store values in that memory, and we can use function memory as a variable memory. And what kind of data a function can return? Any type of data. Yesterday you saw that a function can return a function, right? So can we have multiple returns? We can have multiple returns also, right? So that is about how we can use function returns. Next, while working with function, we need to know another concept is, so function closure. We need to know function closure. It's a simple point. So closure is nothing but every function inbuilt have a closure. So actually closure is a mechanism that allows the members of outer scope, inner scope. That is the concept called closure. That's a simple concept. So generally in many websites and interviews, they give a complicated explanation about this, which is not required at all. Why? Because generally closure is not a concept to write. By default, when you write a function, the function have a closures. Inbuilt function have a closure. For example, what is the purpose of let and const? What is difference between var, let and const? Var is which scope? Function scope. Let and const are block scope. Block scope means they are accessible in that specified block and also to inner blocks. Remember that point? They are accessible to that block and their inner blocks. That is called closure. So that means you declare anything in an outer block is accessible to inner block. Any keyword you may use, var or let or const. This mechanism is called as closure. So closure means by default every function have a closure. So every function by default have a closure. Every function by default have a closure. So what extra you have to learn here is, in a closure, how we can access the members of inner in outer. That is the extra. That means we have to learn how to access the members of inner in outer. That is the additional thing you need to know here. So what is a closure here is, so for example, we are defining a function. So we are configuring a function and function outer. In this outer function, we have declared some variable let x10. Now we have a function inside. This is inner function. And in this inner function, so let y is 20 and let z is equal to x plus y. Now here we want to print outside document dot write z is equal to how much. Now here what is the point is, this you declared outside, is it accessible inside? Yes. This you declared inside, is it accessible outside? No. So this is a closure mechanism. Now what is the question for you is, generally in interviews, in a closure, how we can access the members of inner. How we can access? I want to access the result stored in this Z and use outside, but it is not accessible, but I want to use it. And how? We don't have to have a global variable. We can just make this function to return x plus y. If it returns x plus y, that means the result is stored in inner. And that inner you can use here. Am I right? Inner you can access here. And here you say some addition, something. That is the mechanism. You can access the results of an inner in outer just by making the inner to return the value. And you can see it is going to return the values. It is going to return the value, and we have to call the function. Which function? Outer. Outer function, when you call, it is going to return the result and display the result. This mechanism is called as a closure. So syntactically, we have a function outer, and in that we have a function inner, and this inner function return a value which you can access and use in outer. You can access inner value. Here outside we can access the inner value. When it is, it can do that. That is a function closure. Actually, this is not closure. Closure finishes automatic. That means every function inbuilt is having a closure. This is not closure. Here, what is this example? It is showing in a closure how inner members can be made available to outer. That's the point we are showing. So you should not say that accessing inner members outside is closure. Accessing outer members inner is called closure. Not inner members outside. That is not closure. Already there is a closure. We are just using the technique to access members of inner in outer. Right. This is the example for that. So that is an example for the closures. So this is function closure. Next important, we have to know about a function generator. we have to know about a function generator. What is a function generator? Actually, function generator is used for building libraries. For example, if I ask like, what is difference between a for and a for loop, right? And a map method. Both are reading the values from a collection. You can read by using for or by using for is a loop and map is an iterator. What is a loop? Loop requires initialization. It requires condition and requires counter or iterator. It is right. Where start, when to stop, how to you tell. You don't tell. Map, you are not writing a condition. Then without condition, how it knows when to stop? Without a condition, how it knows when to stop? How it knows when to start? How it knows how to proceed to next? So internally, map is actually, it is a function generator. Internally, map is a function generator. What is the specialty of a generator? It identifies, is there any value to read? If there is a value to read, it will read. After reading the value, it will automatically proceed to next. Means it will store value in memory and it will automatically proceed to next because it have a value property, it have a next method, and it have a done method. Internally, a function generator contains a value, next, and done. What value will do is it will read the value and return. After returning, next what it will do is it will ask done method, is it done or false? If it says done is false, that means there is still more values. Then what happens? Next method will execute. It will read the next value. Until how many times it will do? Until done is true. Once done is true, then it will stop. So without a condition, without an counter, how it is reading? Internally, it is using a concept called function generator. Function generator. We can create that. I will show you. See how a function generator is created. Generally, function generators are created like this. Function, we use an asterisk after it. And function name. Function name I will give as suppose numbers. Like this, I am giving function name. And see here, so numbers or anything. And a generator will not return value. Because return means what? Return means stop. A generator is used for iterator. When a generator is used for iterator, it should not stop for every value. It should return the value and continue. How to return the value and continue? We use a word yield. Yield 10. So we use yield 20. Anything you can return, number, string, array, anything, object. So yield 30. What is difference between yield and return? What is the meaning of yield and return? A simple point. Suppose we have crop. So means farmland is there. We kept some crop. And crop returns and crop yields. What is difference? Crop return means one time. You cut the crop, finish. Yield means you cut, it will grow again. Yielding means it is not stopping. It is you cut after 1 month, it will grow again. You cut again after 1 month, it will grow again. That is what yield. So that means it yields a value. It is not stopping. Return means stops. It is yielding a value. And see the interesting part here now, how it works. I will put var, I will say n is equal to numbers. We are assigning that into n. And we will print console.log n dot next. N have a next method. And see what it is going to return. I will open the console, inspect. I will open here the console and let's refresh here. You see it is going to return first value and done is false. That means it is returning first value and done is false. That means there is some more to read. Then you use the next again. I will use the next again. Then you can see that it is going to return the second one and done is still false. So you give again next. So here it reads done still false. Still false means that 30 is not finished. After 30 is finished, there is no more value. Then done is true. And the value is undefined, means there is no value. And we write conditions, means internally it have a condition. What is the condition? If n is true, then stop. So if anyone asks, these questions are not for freshers. For freshers, they don't ask how it works. They just ask what is map, right? What is the architecture of map? That is a high level experience question. That means if anybody asks how iterators work, how map works at experience level, then we have to say that by using a function generator. A function generator is used for designing maps and iterators in computer program. You know, in your Java, you have for each. Is it using a condition? No, it is not using a condition. Then how it is stopping? For a loop, for loop, you write I0, I stop here, right? How it is working? That means there is something behind it which is verifying. And those are what we call as generators. So what is the concept of function generator? So a generator, and why it is used asterisk? Can you tell? Asterisk means 0 or more. That means there is nothing to read, then stop. There is more to read, it will repeat. That is what zero time execution or many time execution. Many times, how many times? That depends on done. So what is a function? A function generator. A function generator is used to create iterators in computer programming. So iterator is a software design used to access elements from a collection in a sequential order. So generator, it doesn't require iterator. Iterator doesn't require condition, counter, and initializer. Generator is defined using asterisk, which means 0 or more times execution. So it yields it yields a result and moves to next and moves to next. So the method done, so returns true when there is no more value to read. When there is no more value to read. That is the generator, actually it works. So how to define a generator here? So syntax, we have a function asterisk and reference name, and it uses yield and value, and we have to create a reference for this name, and through that reference you can access through that reference you can access next. Next is an object. That object contains value. It returns value, and the reference next contains a done. What it will return? Return true if there are no more values. If there are no more values to read, like this. So I just showed you next method. Actually, next method is returning an object. That object contains two things. One is value, another one is done. If you want to read only value, just value. If you want to check done, done, right? You have to use these two things. That is the reason of generators. We can create iterators. People who work for building libraries and all have to use these generators. Example for that function generator is this. Yield, right? Yield. Huh? Scroll down. Where to scroll? You will get all these in the classroom also. Huh? This is example. Example you will get in the class, right? The note you can make. Right. Next important, another about function is while working with function, you have to know about function callback. Function have another concept called callbacks. Already we know it. I yesterday showed you success, failure like functions. If password is correct, success will execute. Password is wrong, failure will execute. Callback is nothing but, generally, callback is a technique. It is a technique where we configure a set of functions that execute according to state and situation. So it is a technique where we configure some set of functions, but all functions will not execute. Which function have to execute, that depends on situation. If situation is matching, it will execute one function. If it is not matching, it will execute another. But here one drawback is that callback uses blocking technique. Blocking technique means, so it is synchronous. synchronous. What is synchronous means? It will not allow, it will not allow any another task to perform while executing the function. That means it will block all other tasks. When you are using a callback, some functionality is happening, and to complete that functionality, it will take some time. And it will, during that time, it will not allow any another work to perform. That means in a page, there are two tasks, and both tasks have to execute. But what callbacks will do, they will block the other tasks. They will not allow other tasks to run until or unless they finish the given task. This is not a good idea. That's the reason in modern JavaScript technologies, we are avoiding these callbacks. And almost all JavaScript libraries in their latest version, they are changing. They are removing callbacks and they are adding a new concept called promise. So in future, when you are learning different JavaScript libraries, you will see that all the libraries 2 years back different, now different. In the latest versions, those libraries completely changed. Those libraries completely changed. All libraries are shifting from callbacks to which mechanism? Promise. What is callback technique? Simply is nothing but suppose. So we are creating a function. I will give as fetch say get API. Get API is a function. What this function have to do is it would get a URL and it should get data from URL. If the URL is correct, if the URL is correct, then it will send a success response. If it is wrong, it will send a failure response. That means failure response. So that means how it happens. So failure. How it happens is, it is asking URL. If URL is correct, it will execute success. Otherwise, it will execute failure. So we will write a condition. If URL is equal to some http://fakestore_api.com. We are expecting this. If it is matching with it, then success function will execute. Success is used as a function. Otherwise, which function will execute? Failure. Failure will be function. Now what we do is, we will write get API. Here we will ask prompt and we will say enter URL. After that, comma, you have to write a function. This function is related to success. That means we will say document.write data fetched successfully. So this message should come. Otherwise, we will use comma, another function. This function will execute on failure. That means we have three parameters. First parameter is URL. Second parameter is success function. Third parameter is failure function. This failure function will put a message document.write. So error is unable to fetch. Now see, when I run this, how many functions are there? 2 functions are there. Now when a call is running, it will block everything else. That means in this page, there are so many other functions to execute. It will not allow them to execute. First, it has to finish this, then it will execute others. That's not good for application, right? So you see now here, when I run, it will ask URL. I entered some wrong URL, then it says unable to fetch. I entered the correct URL http://fakestoreapi.com and it will say fetched successful. So we created a callback mechanism. But as I said, these days we are not preferring this. In the modern JavaScript advanced technologies, we are not using callbacks anymore. We used to use them 1-2 years back. Now everything we are changing into another mechanism. What is it? I will show you. Syntactically, we have a function name and we have callback 1 and say some callback 2. Like that, you can have any number of callbacks. Callback is nothing but a function. That means into the name, you have to write a function 1. This is callback 1. Another function, this is for callback 2. So this is the callback mechanism. Now, we'll see an example here. How this is going to happen. An example we will see. So this example I will copy. That is the example of working with callback, right? How do we define and use it? So what is the solution for this? Create a asynchronous method. Asynchronous method means asynchronous method is nothing but without blocking other tasks, it should execute. It should execute. That is what you have already used. You remembered you used fetch for fetching data from JSON. We used a method called fetch. That fetch is actually a promise. Internally, that fetch is a promise. For example, you see here, I am writing fetch. You see, this fetch is a promise type. By default, it is a promise type. What is the speciality of promises? Promise is same like callback. So we generally call this as function promise. Function promise. The word promise is same like a real word promise. That means what is the status generally will be a promise. That means you made a promise. You made a promise that you will do this, right? Then what is the status of that promise? Really 3 status. 1, the promise is pending. 2, the promise is fulfilled. 3, the promise is executed. That is the same concept. We design promises instead of callbacks so that they will wait for starting. Once they start, if it is success, they will execute. If there is failure, they will stop. They will stop. And what is specialty about promise is asynchronous. Means it will not block any other task in the page. Along with them, it will execute. That means it is taking some time to fetch data or interact with it. During the time, it will not block others. It will allow others to execute. This mechanism is called as what? Asynchronous. So promise uses an async technique. So async is an unblocking technique that allows the task to perform without blocking other tasks. Task to perform without blocking other tasks. That is actually function promise. Right. Generally, Promise promise comprises of three phases. A, pending, so resolved and rejected, and pending is initial phase, and resolved, it is defined using then method is used. Rejected, it is defined using catch. And you know what will happen. Then will handle the response when it is success. Catch will handle the error, catch the error when it failed. That's what happens. When it is failed, what should happen? That is defined by using what? Catch. So a promise comprises of three phases. And how to create a promise actually? Promise is created like this. Syntax, where reference name is equal to promise. And in that promise, we are defining. In that promise, we are configuring a function. This function actually have resolve and it will have reject. This function is going to have a resolve and result. And this resolve means if condition evaluates to true, then it will be resolve. Okay. Resolve. And this is on success. And else what should happen? Reject. This is on failure. That is reject on failure. That's how a promise is designed. It is same like a callback function, but it is asynchronous. And how do we call this promise? Generally, what we do is we just use a reference name. After that, we use then keyword. And after that, we use an catch method. What then is going to do? It is going to have a function. This function will say is also going to have a function. And what function then will do? It will collect the resolve. What catch will do? It will collect the reject. It's going to collect those resolve and reject. That is actually your fetch was working. We have a fetch method. Fetch was working with the help of what promise. Using a promise, the concept was working. That is, remember in JavaScript, anywhere any function have then and catch, then it is a promise. In JavaScript libraries anywhere in the world, in future you are learning Angular or React anywhere, you see a JavaScript library is using .then, .catch, it is a promise. And in the modern JavaScript, you will see everywhere people using this. Now let's see, we will convert the same example into a promise. The same example we will see with a promise. Let's see. How do we define the promise? We have to use, so where get API is equal to promise. Now actually promise uses a function. It will have two options. What are those? So we need to allocate memory. So new what? Promise. And it will have two options. I missed this new keyword in syntax. You have to use it. That is memory allocator, right? Memory allocation. Now, promise, it will have a function. This function will have two things. Is it resolve? Another one is what? Reject. The resolve and reject. And we will use a variable called URL is equal to, I will click a prompt, I will ask enter URL. And here we will verify if URL is matching with http://fakestore.api.com, then what should happen? Resolve should execute and send a message, data fetched. It should put a message, data fetched successfully. This message should come. Otherwise, what should happen? Reject should execute and it will say unable to fetch data. This message should come. That is how we design a promise. Now, how to execute this promise? So, reference name get API dot then, it uses then. You see, automatically then method is available. Then catch finally. Finally means it executes always. We saw exception handling, try, catch, throw, finally. So here we have then uses a callback function, a function. What this function have to do is it should get document right. It should display error. After that, remember this function is going to catch this message. That function is going to catch that message. That is what you are using in fetch API response. That response is converted into JSON. After that, the data is collected and used. Then here, what is getting response. The response message. This is on success. So success, that response message we will print here. Am I right? We have another option. What is it? We have catch. We can use any number of thens and we can display any number of times the message, right? I will use another option. What is it? Catch. Catch uses a function. What is it? This time it will get exception message, right? Error. And document.write, we will print here error, and whatever the exception message it got, that we will store. That is how we create a promise. So these days, everywhere the promises are very important to use in place of callbacks. And when I run this now, you can see now the same enter URL. I entered wrong URL, then unable to fetch data, error. And I entered the URL http://fakestore.api.com, then it will say data fetched successful. The callbacks are now replaced with what? Replaced with promises, which are asynchronous, which are fast. Right? All modern JavaScript related complex tasks are done by using this promise, function promise. This is an example for that. So we have function closures, function callbacks, function promises, right? And another point, we have function recursion. I think you know this in your general Java also. Function recursions are nothing but function recursion is the concept of calling a function inside the function. Calling a function inside the same function. Why you call a function inside the same function? This is recursion. The purpose of recursion is we generally use this for performing batch operations. We call batch operations. Batch operation means, I will show you a point. So actually, I have some E drive. Okay. Actually, I have my command prompt. Just roughly, I'm showing. A software developer, after he opens his computer every day, he need to run some diagnostics, like how many files are there, how much memory is there. So, right, he want to know everything. Then what happens is every few days, every day when he open computer, he wants some task to run in the same order. Then what I will show? First, I am writing date. Okay, it shows the date. After that time, it shows the time. After that, I use mode. It is showing the device screen mode. How many lines, how many columns. I'm using DR files list. These things how to do date. Then how a software developer does it? A software developer will create a batch job. He will create a batch job. Like this we create. Copycon. Copycon is a command used for creating file from a console mode. From a console mode, you can create a file by using copycon. Its name as my daily task .bat. You can give any shorter name. So my daily task.bat. Bat is a batch files. And in this my daily task bat, I will write what actions to perform. That means I will write date, I will write time, I will write mode, I will write dir like this. After that, I will close the file. File is created successfully. And when I run this my daily task and hit enter, it will start executing them. Date will come, time will come, mode and dir will come. I want again, I will run it again. Again, it will run. Every day you can run it. So where you have seen this in real time, you have seen so many times, but you don't know that. Actually, if you remember, you are using some library installing. How to install Bootstrap? How to install Bootstrap? npm install Bootstrap and save. This is a batch command. This is a batch operation. It's a batch command. How come a library will download just using this command? That means there might be so many tasks behind it. Do you know what are behind it? First, it will connect to the website. Second, it will download the files. Third, it will create a folder in your project by name node modules. Have you observed? You created that folder? No, this command created. And after creating, in that subfolder created by name bootstrap icons, in that it copied all the files. So much work is going on. This is called batch operation. That means a sequence of operations are required every time in the same way. Then our software developers will design batch operations and use them. And actually, this is a batch operation. And see, when I run this batch operation, observe, I am running this batch operation. At certain moment, I want to stop. Actually, it have to complete. Some more is there, but I want to stop. I don't want. Then Control C. Control C, it will say terminate batch job. Do you want to terminate batch job? We will say yes. Okay, it stops. Let's see our project now. In this project, let's open the terminal here. In the terminal, let's run the command. What is the command for installing any library? npm install what it is? Bootstrap hyphen save. Bootstrap icon thing. I hit it starts downloading and installing. Suddenly I press Control C and it is terminate batch. So at really experience level, developers use, they ask this question. Angular, React like technologies, they ask. In Angular, you run this command, na? Why you will run that? What is the purpose of that command? They ask. And what is that command? And how it is installing everything? That is a simple thing. It is a batch operation. It's a batch operation. I say, no, I don't want to continue. It will stop it. It will not install Bootstrap. So these are batch operations. Okay, what is relation of batch with our recursion? What is it? Relation of batch with our recursion is simple. Suppose in the batch operation, I created files list, dir, and see, type what it is, my daily task dot what bat. In that, actually these commands I written. And what are the commands I written? Date, time, mode, dir. So dir will run how many times? One time. I want to run it 10 times. Then you will write 10 times. dir 10 times. You write, it will run 10 times. I want to run 1 year. 1 year it should not stop, run continuously. Then how many times I have to write? How will create an infinite loop? We use a recursion technique. We will not write a loop for that. We use a recursion technique. And what is the recursion technique? See now. So copy con my list dot bat. And see here, first command is dir. After that, my list and close. It is done. What is this happening here? First, it will execute which command? dir. After that, it will execute file. In that file, dir is present. Am I right? Just by writing 2 lines, you are creating an infinite loop. That means it will execute this one. Again this. This is how we create an infinite loop. We just create an infinite loop. This is recursion. What is recursion? Accessing the file name within the file. And see now, if I run my list, see what happens. It continuously runs. It will never stop. These kind of operations we create. If you see, suppose at your home, some internet connection not working properly. Make a complaint. So the person will come to, technical person will come to check. See his device. There is a device in his hand, which a console. He will put a cable into the device and he will see a response is coming from the server or not, internet connection server. And you will see that a sequence of response is coming. Then connection is there. In between, it will say some red marks. That means it is disconnecting in between. That means a continuous batch job he will run. At least for 15-20 times he will, 10 minutes he will run. And he will see the performance. In between any disturbance is happening. That means it is having a problem. You see every machine, for example, in hospital, you will see scanning machines, ICUs, you see they monitor the BP, they monitor heart rate. That is a continuous batch job. Continuous batch job. That means continuously it is repeating it until you stop it. These are batch operations. Those devices are using batch jobs. So how we can create an infinite loop? That means until how many times it should run? Until you unplug or switch off. It should run. That is what actually batch, that is what we call as what? Recursion. So how you can create recursions? What is the concept of recursion? Recursion is nothing but, recursion is a technique of calling a function within the context of same function. Within the context of same function. It is often used for creating. It is often used for creating batch operations. It can configure an infinite loop. Configure an infinite loop. That is the actual concept of recursion. Generally use this. It is commonly used to build complex mathematical or scientific expressions. It is used to build mathematical, scientific, and expressions. So that is the concept of recursions. That means syntactically what we have a function and f1. Usually the function f1 is called inside the function. That is recursion. So not just calling outside, it is called inside the same function. That is the recursion. It repeats it now. So until the condition, it repeats it, right? That is the concept of recursions, how you configure a recursion. So let's see one small example for this point, how the recursion is going to work now. So we will go here. How do we define the recursion? I will just add a function. Suppose we are defining a function, factorial function. We want to find factorial of a given number and return. That means based on the number, it will go on repeating until it is 1. 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, like that it will repeat. So what this function have to do is, if n is equal to 0, it should return 1. Otherwise, if n is equal to 0, it should return n into factorial of n minus 1. That's it. That is the logic of repeating until the condition is satisfied. Now what happens is, in this approach, you are calling a function within the same function. And this is recursion. For example, now I entered factorial of 5. Then what will happen? It will first come here. It will check that it is not equal to 0. If it is not equal to 0, it will go to return. Return what? N into factorial of this. That means, which is how much? 5 into factorial of 5 minus 1. That means this 5 minus 1 is set to how much? It is set to 4. 5 minus 1 is to 4, and it is written in a function. If it is written in a function, this function will execute again. Am I right? It will execute again, but the value will be how much? 4, and the result is stored here. 4 in 5. The result is stored in the memory. The result in the memory of what? Factorial memory. The result is stored 20. Because return means it will use the same function memory. It will repeat again. Now this time it will be how much? This time it will be factorial of how much? 4. And already in factorial, what is present? It is 20. 20 into what it is? Factorial of how much? 4 minus 1. That means it evaluates how much? 3. Then in this factorial, what is the value stored? 60. 60. After that, now the factorial executes one more time. What it is? 3. And at this time, it is how much? 60 into. So factorial of 3 minus 1. How much it is? 2. 2. That means factorial is what? Factorial is equal to 120. After that, the factorial will come. Then it will be 2. Then it will be how much? 120 into factorial of how much? 2 minus 1. That is how much? 1. That means that factorial is equal to how much? It is 120. It will execute again factorial again. It will be how much? 1 1. That means it will be how much? 120 factorial of factorial how much? Minus 1. How much it is? 0. It is 0. It will return again 1. Am I right? When n is 0, if n is 6, it will return again 1. That means finally it will what? Factorial is how much? 120. After that it will stop now. It will not execute anymore. This is an instruction until the condition satisfies. That is a easy way of doing lengthy complex scientific operations using loop. You see lot of nested loops are required in general. This is a solution for handling that without it. Document dot write. Suppose I say factorial of 5 is how much? Factorial of how much? 5. I am passing the value of 5. Then it is going to get that and display. I am using factorial of suppose 7 and it is 7 how much? It is going to return that and display. This is the concept of working with what? Recursion. This is an example for function recursions. We call them as function recursion. Next important in the functions, we are having arrow functions. I hope you have these in your technology also. Lambda, right? Lambda expressions. Arrow is nothing but a shortcut way of writing a function expression. It is a shorthand technique of writing function expression. These days, everywhere we use this. These days, in modern programming, we don't use traditional functions. We use majority of arrows. That means arrow is nothing but it is a shorthand technique for writing a function expression. For writing a function expression. So it uses the following characters. So we have parenthesis. This represents a function and its parameters. And we have an implies. It represents return and definition. Function definition and function return both can be designed by using arrow. Means implies. You can define like this. For example, actually we are writing general expression like var addition is equal to function. This addition function is taking a comma b and what it is doing, suppose it is returning a plus b. This is without arrow technique. Without arrow, generally functions are written like that. Now with arrow how we write? Var addition is equal to parenthesis a comma b implies a plus b. That's how we write. That is the shorthand way of writing a function. Shorthand way of writing a function. So you don't need to use the word function. You just mention the parameters if parameters are there, not the empty parenthesis. And implies indicates return. Suppose if it is not return, if it is void method, then void method no problem. What to do? Var suppose hello, I will say hello is equal to a function and it should return so many functionalities. Then you take curly brace. In the curly brace you can define statement 1, statement 2, anything. So we can execute any number of statements like that. So that implies indicates return and that implies indicates the definition. In the modern JavaScript, everywhere we use these options. For example, I will show you now. Means actually, if only one is present, suppose I am using example like we have a function hello. This function have to take a username and it should print. So document dot write, it should print hello and that username. It should print the username. This is our task. Then how do you write this in a shortcut way? We use var hello is equal to just uname implies document dot write and we will put that hello and uname. That's how we write. That is how we have to write the method. That is the shorthand way. You don't need to put parenthesis for parameter if it is only one. If there are 0 parameters and more parameters, then you have to put a parenthesis. For example, suppose your function is taking two values. Suppose hello, it is taking username and age. Then we cannot print like this, uname, comma, age, not correct. We have to write in a parenthesis. What is it? Uname and age. And it should print the details. Document dot write. So here it will display hello and that uname and your age and that age, whatever value is there. This is how we do. If there are many parameters, we do that. So in modern JavaScript, everywhere people use this shortcut technique writing. Traditionally, in future, you will not use general functions for expression. Everywhere we have to follow the shorthand technique. So the shorthand techniques are defined in this way. For example, see now, I am writing a simple shorthand technique here. So where addition is equal to a comma b and implies a plus b. That's it. That means document dot write. So addition is equal to, we have to just call the addition function and two values we are passing into it. Now it is going to get and return the result. That is a shorthand way of writing the function. Now we will implement in our existing example. For example, you have to fetch data from API. What is the method we use? Fetch. URL http:// what it is? fakestoreapi.com/what products. It is returning all products. I will use dot then uses a function. Then we don't write a function now. We will simply write response implies response.json. That's shorthand. That means that is a function with parameter called response and that parameter returns JSON. Implies indicates return. And next then, what is next then? We will collect products. Products is the parameter. Implies, now it will do some functionality like presenting and everything. Suppose I will say document dot write. I will print here that is an array. Then we have to use what? Products dot what? Map. And map is again using a function inside now. This time we will use simply product and that product need to be printed. So everywhere, wherever you are using function, now we have to replace with the arrow. Now here we have to just print that product. What we have to do? Document dot write. We have to print the product and dot title and put a BR. It is going to print all the product names. And you see now I'm using shorthand for map. I'm using shorthand for fetch. And you see the same thing is working here. It's the same concept. We are fetching data from that API and we are displaying. Right. This time we are not using the traditional approach. We are using a very modern, fast approach. That is what we call as arrow. That is the arrow technique of configuring and defining the function. This is example for that. Am I right? The arrow. This is all about concepts that have to know about functions in JavaScript. So there are so many functions. If you remembered function bounce, right? Function bounce and debounce. Remember, the debounce is nothing but setting the timeouts and intervals. Right? Debound is the complexity. Means when user holds down a key, it will execute continuously. That is debound. Right? Now, once we know the functions in JavaScript, now another important concept in JavaScript, now you need to know JavaScript OOP concept. And here it is not like your general Java OOP because it is not a OOP language. So you have very limited features of OOPs and those you will learn here. And they already, we know simple they are. It's not like your Java OOP because usually JavaScript is not an OOP language, but it has some of the features of OOPs which will help developers. Some features are there. What are those features actually? First important, generally, a basic point I will give you about OOP. Generally, in a real world project development, we use various programming systems. We use programming systems like we have like POPS, OBPS, and we have like OOPs. So many. Generally, in real-time programming, in real-time project development, we have different programming systems. Depending on situation, requirement, we use them. Like we have POPs, process-oriented programming system. OBPS, object-based programming system. And OOPS, object-oriented programming system. And every programming system have its own advantages and drawbacks. Depending on the situation and requirement, we use them. Depending on situation and requirement. For example, actual concept is POPS. It is process-oriented programming system. What is the specialty of this is it supports low-level features. What is advantage of supporting low-level features is it can directly interact with hardware services. So what is advantage of that is it is fast. It is faster and uses less memory. That is the specialty of POPS. But drawbacks are there. Example for POPS is C, Pascal, or POPS. Process-oriented programming systems there. Do you know why C language was invented? Why C language was invented, do you know? C language was invented to design the operating system called Unix. To write the code for the operating system called Unix, C language was developed. Earlier, they were doing that by using BCPL and D-like languages. Right? So, the point is these are process-oriented programming systems and they are not like old or less priority. They are used in high-level areas actually. We use that in very high-level areas. What is drawback of these is, I will show the point here. Drawback of this is, so this is hard to extend. It is hard to extend. They are not good. They are hard to extend. So, so not having good dynamic memories, dynamic memory will not be there. So not good for reusability. They are not good for reusability. Extensibility is not good. Dynamic memory allocations. So not good in separation issues. That means code separation issues will be there. Issues. These are all the drawbacks of that, but they have great features, right? For example, I will tell you the real world application areas here. For example, best example I will tell you. Do you know we have our moon mission currently, right? Do you know the lifespan of this mission? What ISRO says about our moon mission? What is the lifespan of this mission? 14 days. 14 days only. They sent a rover to moon and its lifespan is 14 days. After 14 days, somebody will kill it or it will die. Then why 14 days? You know at least 14 days. Yeah? No general knowledge. Yeah? No basic general knowledge. Only YouTube. Huh? Right? Do you know its lifespan is 14 days? And do you know why 14 days? It's very simple because we sent a rover to moon and we have to control that rover from here. In our Chandrayaan 2, we failed because of heavy weight of the payloads. It was unable to land safely and it crashed due to some problem in software. Right now, what they have done is they removed a lot of weight. They made strong bases. And the main point is they have to remove weight. And why the lifespan is that because they have to control the device, the rover from Earth, which is some lakhs of kilometers distance. And for that, they put a chip inside it. And that chip we have to control from here. That means when these people say turn left, after 15-16 hours, it will turn left there. If it is Mars, you know, NASA have Mars rovers. They say turn left. After 15 days, it will turn left. Because the command reaches 15 days. Right? That means it takes 15 days to reach. It's not like remote control game they are playing. That means they are turning left, right, jumping. Right? They have to wait to see other side. Right? That means the point here is they have to send a lightweight device on space. Otherwise, they can't. It has to take it, load. That's the reason they put very lightweight chips inside it. Control program. And generally, space research use Visual Pascal. They use Visual Pascal language. It's a very highly advanced scientific language. And do you know what happens is those chips, they start giving commands from Earth. After few days, the chip is full. It will not take more commands. And you cannot erase the commands. Not good for reusability and not good for extensibility. What is reusability and extensibility? That means you can extend the memory. We can extend the functionality. We can't do that. After 14 days maximum, it will stop responding now. Why it will stop responding? Because their calculation is for 14 days, whatever commands we give, these are important. They cannot give unnecessary commands now. And once a command is given, it cannot be rolled back. This is very tough to handle. That is the reason here is the memory is not extendable, and after that for certain days it will be gone. It will be gone. Almost all. You see, NASA have 3-4 rovers on Mars. They lost communication with all previous rovers. Now again a new rover is Curiosity currently running there, and this also will end after few days or few months or years. Wow. End means what? They lose the communication. How they lose the communication? It is not out. It is not going outside somewhere. It is there only, but it is not taking commands. Then how they control? They cannot erase. That is the problem. So these scientific features in programming, but drawbacks are there. Drawbacks are there. We cannot write a Java program for Mars rovers. Java program will not work there. That means Java, .NET are not suitable for such high advanced scientific. Right? The point was the drawback is that the advantage is they are faster, they use less memory. That is the meaning of OPS. You see, you have a air conditioned refrigerator, washing machine, microwave ovens, all are embedded systems. Na? They use C language, na? Right? That means in a washing machine, you don't have a Java program. You don't have a Java program. Have you ever seen washing machine software updated? No, at the time of manufacturing, what they keep the same. And do you know they can directly interact with hardware? They can control the fan speed. They can control the rotation of any hardware device directly. That is faster. That is the abilities of what? POPS. But there are some drawbacks of POPS, right? There are some issues with POPS. Those are the issues. Another one we are having OBPS. It is object-based programming system. Object-based programming system. Actually, it supports reusability. It supports separation. And it have dynamic memory. So, but the point here is it has dynamic memories. And all. The point here is some issues are there. Example is JavaScript and Visual Basic. This comes under the category of object-based programming. Officially, they are not object-oriented programming. Huh? Object-based programming. What are the issues here? Lot of issues are there again. What are the issues is extensibility issues. Extensibility issues are there. There is no dynamic polymorphism. Dynamic polymorphism is not there. You know about polymorphism in your Java and all. Dynamic polymorphism is not there. And no code level security. That means in your Java, you will have public, private access modifiers, am I right? Here we don't have, right? No contracts here, no contracts and templates, That means you don't have interfaces, abstract classes, sealed classes like that. But you have a class. But you don't have abstract classes, you don't have interfaces. That means abstraction, interfaces, access modifiers, all are not there. Then it is not a OOP language. It is not an OOP language. So that is the drawbacks of this object-based programming system. And we have another one, object-oriented programming system. Programming system. What is object-oriented programming system concept? It supports all of the features. That means code reusability and code separation. So code accessibility, and we have code level security. All these are the so many features will be there, right? Example for this is C++, C#, Java. This comes under that. What are the drawbacks of OOPS? No drawbacks. Huh? Any technology you are learning, it is the best in the world because you are learning. Huh? It doesn't have any drawbacks issues. What are the drawbacks of OOPS? We have a lot of drawbacks of OOPS. That's why we are not using in space research. We are not using in defense like missiles, so like atomic research or any other. We are not using them because they are not suitable there. Right? A missile cannot be controlled with a Java program. Satellite cannot be controlled with a Java program. Right? And they are very high level. Right? That means the point here, what are drawbacks? Why? Drawbacks, so many are there. One of the main drawback is, so they don't support direct low level features. Low level features. So they cannot directly interact with hardware, cannot directly interact with the hardware. They cannot directly interact with hardware. Am I right? That means they need more memory. They need more memory. They are very complex in configuration. Generally, we call them as TDS. TDS means lazy, slow, tortoise-like. We call them as TDS. Right? These are all the problems. So this is basic point about these are all the issues of OOP. That's the reason OOP is not best everywhere. Everywhere we don't need OOP languages because they are not good every time. So for example, the point is very simple. Suppose you are using mobile. The operating system for your mobile. Suppose you are using operating system Android, iOS. This Android, iOS operating system is built with your Java only. Core Java is used for that building Android, iOS systems. And you have an Android phone, iOS phone. You have an Android phone, and that phone is 20,000, 30,000, some cost. It is having RAM, ROM, everything is there. You have a non-Android phone, which is Symbian phone. Do you know Symbian operating system? The devices which don't have touch screen. Without touch screen, character base will be there. Na? They use an operating system called Symbian. One of the operating system for that is Symbian operating system. You see old Nokia phones and all, right? They are all characters only. Your 20,000 rupees phone and 1,000 rupees phone, right? You turn on both 1,000 rupees phone, get ready first. Your 20,000 phone is still loading. Am I right? Your 20,000 rupee phone will be hanging in between. This will work fast. It will never hang up. If you are looking for features, you have to compromise with speed. You have to compromise with space. Right? If you are not looking for features, these are enough. That means they are not great technologies. They have a lot of issues. They don't suit in many places. We don't use them many places. We don't prefer them in many places. Why? Because these are the drawbacks. Do you know we are using the operating system. Earlier, the computers we have to operate by using a floppy disk. You know floppy disk? Right? We used to operate a computer with floppy disk. Put the floppy disk, computer will on, we will work and remove it. Computer will not work without floppy disk. Do you know the capacity of floppy disk? 1.44 MB. One floppy disk. And you know, in that 1 MB, we have operating system, we have softwares, and we have our files. In 1 MB, we have our softwares, our files, and operating system also. Operating system like DOS, disk operating system. That means we used to operate a computer just with 1 MB memory. Now you are using what? You are using Windows na? Windows. That means one photo is more than 1 MB. Right? Do you know Windows minimum requires 5 GB of memory to install? Minimum 5 GB of memory to install. Right? We used to operate a computer with softwares and files with just 1 MB. That means you are looking for graphics, interfaces, and more features. Then obviously you should be compromising with space and size and speed. These three matters. That's very important. That's the reason OOP is not the best language for every type of situation. That's the reason we use different programming systems. Right? Now in this JavaScript, what are the features of OOPs available? We have to learn about the features of OOP in JavaScript. In those features, we learn about two important things. So we learn first about JavaScript module system, and we will learn about JavaScript classes. These are only the topics we have. In concept, these are present. In classes, you will learn about a point called inheritance, how to use. But it is not like your all Java inheritance and all limited functionalities. Polymorphism, limited features will be there. These we will see in the next session, right? About the modules and about the classes in JavaScript, how to work. Next session tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a session, same time. Tomorrow Sunday. Everybody knows that tomorrow is Sunday. What is session? We will have session tomorrow. Tomorrow we will have session and it will be same time. Same time. And tomorrow again important. Very, very important topic, because this is what you use in React, Angular like technologies. JavaScript module systems and classes. Your wish, who will come, he will learn. Otherwise, you will face problem in future React and Angular like technologies, because there we use these systems, right? Tomorrow we will discuss about that. Okay, right.